Hey, what's going on? It's your boy Brandon Berg. Just catch you with this on this Easter holiday. Do I celebrate it? Not really. So it's actually come from we actually made this the Easter holidays actually got a little bit of paganism, a pagan background, and the origin stem from a legend that's really from Samaritans. Um, Basically near the summer region outside of Mesopotamia. Um, that's where the kind of like the whole origin of Easter really come from. Is basically it come from basically like a Babylonian um, basic origin. Um, but I'm not gonna really jump on that. I'll probably jump on that maybe a little later about the origin of Easter. Um, with that, you know what I'm saying? But I really want to jump on here. Like I said, I'm doing a fun fact of history, so I really want to point this out. I know a lot of people been talking about the Marcus Garvey, MLK, Malcolm X, and all etc. And but there's a lot of keys figures in this conscious, this black conscious, this black empowerment movement. This black nationalism and black radicalism. Um, and the person who really put a fourth into it, his name was Hubert Harrison. Um, and he was like basically the godfather of the Harlem radicalism. Um, Basically, he propelled black consciousness and black empowerment. And yes, he was a radical. You know what I'm saying? He believed in blacks need to be separate, and we can be separate and still be thriving. So he was like a nationalist. And I mean, like I said, really, man, he actually put forth um, almost basically the civil rights movement. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, he was born in 1883 in St. Cox. That used to be a Danish territory. So yes, man, if you don't know what Danish is, if I'm mistaken, um, Danish I think is Denmark. So that's like a Scandinavian country, and I know a lot of people don't, because they rarely like to talk about this in history and like that. But yes, Norway had a lot of slaves, colonies and slaves. They had dealing with slaves. That's one of their colonies they actually had slaves on. Um, Sweden had some slaves, even Norway had slaves. Um, a lot of people in Norway would say Norway was under Denmark, so they try to excuse them out as well. But just like America, you know, if America was a free country, it should have ended slavery altogether, but it did not. So that colony from another state don't really that excuse don't fly with me. But going back to my man, Mr. Hubert Harrison, he was basically the most foremost black person in consciousness and social justice. Like he basically he was an educator, a writer, an orator, um, and he also did he's a free thinker. He was also practicing consciousness, psychology. Brother was real deep, man. He passed away in New York City in December of 1927. I think his birthday was the 17th. Um, but yeah, he actually at that time he actually was the one of the first to start um, the New Negro movement. That's the actual Marcus Garvey movement at that time during the early 1920s. Um, he actually Hubert Harrison was the one that spearheaded the New Negro movement. But also too, he influenced the labor and civic movement. You know, like Marcus Garvey is more for race and nationalists. So that's he spirit in like separation and still be successful. Philip Randall, or they call him Assault Randall, Rudolph, um, he basically spearheaded the labor and civics. So I mean, like basically where MLK come from, the non-violence protests, um, maybe also economic. Um, their protests and economic like boycotting, and you know, two were very affected, but at the same time, he was more nationalist. He was more of a radical. He's more of separation and dealing with the white supremacy by force, if any means necessary. So his influence mainly was really towards Marcus Garvey, but he influenced Randolph. Randolph actually gave him a lot of credit about the black consciousness because he came out with the first newspaper, and he came out, I think, with like a newspaper, and I think it's something else. I think it was called The Voice, if I'm mistaken. So the brother was very intellectual. He used to be known as the Black Socrates. You know what I'm saying? So it lets you know how deep this brother was and how crucial he was to the movement and how great and how influencing of impact he was. Cause I said like he influenced two main people that actually propelled what you see of the two civil rights leaders of what we know of. You know what I'm saying? Malcolm X and Martin Luther King Jr. So brother was very deep, man, very, very conscious, very he believed in entrepreneurship. That's one of his main quests is getting his people economically sovereign. Um, that's why I like to say sovereign, because sovereign means you're basically your own. You're your own state of mind, your own entity. You know what I'm saying? A very independent sound entity. So he was really about that. Was he a super threat at that time? Maybe so. You know what I'm saying? Um, I don't think the FBI wasn't created at that time, so you had a lot of local branches of government at that time. But um, did they kind of like knew about him? Yes, I think they knew him. I knew they knew of him. Um, but yeah, he was one of the main architects of the black conscious, black empowerment movement. You know what I'm saying? When he really came out with um, a consciousness of nationalism within the black race, and I told a lot of people he's from the Caribbean. You know what I'm saying? Marcus Garvey was from the Caribbean, but they believed in the global black African agenda. You know what I'm saying? So it wasn't about if you're from here or you're from there. We're black people. We're African people. We're descendants of slaves. So it all comes back to the same root and the same source. So he's really about that trying to get his people sovereign and economically stable and military strength as possible. Because he believed in action. You know what I'm saying? He believed in violence must be met with violence. So a very radicalism person, but detrimental to black conscience and black empowerment. There was a lot of other figures that was doing a lot of things for black people and put in work. You know what I'm saying? So no credit from the people beyond in the early 1800s, before the 1800s, and so far. But yeah, Hubert Harris is the godfather of black empowerment and black consciousness. Um, so, but I know for some reason his name is not mentioned. So this is my shout out to Mr. Hubert Harrison. Thank you. You know what I'm saying? Um, I like I said, I follow the teaching of my Malcolm X. I follow some teaching about MLK. I mean, he had more of an economic radicalism. He more radicalism on economic based term, affecting your dollars. That's something like more black people we need to start doing. If we're not going to be, if we can be radical, we can be business economic radical. Um, but you got a lot of black people today. Some is willing to take that, but a lot as a whole, we're not ready for that. Dig, get down, get down. You know what I'm saying? So um, definitely, hopefully, in the future, we can really overcome that, and we can really start shocking the masses and really get our agenda going. You know what I'm saying? So, but yeah, I definitely want to put this fun fact of history for Mr. Hubert Harrison. Um, to let him know he is the godfather of black radicalism consciousness. So, yeah, definitely want to definitely shoot this share for him, and I'll probably talk a little bit about Easter, maybe about a little bit of maybe sometime later I'll bring another share. But by then, like I said, you guys have a good holiday. All right, one.